Welcome to day 6 of online learning. We are going over Unit 6, Lesson 1.6, but at this point you need to make sure that you did the do now, which is closest to 1/2, before you begin this video or start anything else. Before we begin this lesson though, I want us to go over what equivalent fractions are. And equivalent fractions are two fractions that are equal. They might have a different numerator, my top number, or a different denominator, my bottom number, but they are the same part of my whole. They fill up my whole the same amount. They're equal to each other. So we said we figured this out using fraction bars and also using our pattern blocks. But yesterday we went over about how we can use our number lines to figure out equivalent fractions. So I just wanted to have a quick review of how that we can figure that out. So here it says that 1/2 is equal to, my dog just came in. 1/2, it's Tucker. How 1/2 is equal to 3/6. And so how we can figure that out is if I put 1/2, I'm going to put that directly in the middle of my number line, because it's halfway between 0 and 1, is equal to 3/6. I want us to make sure that when we separate things into fractions that have a bigger denominator, that we make sure that they're equal. So how I would do that is I'm not even going to start labeling for my 6th yet, but I'm going to make a line in the middle because I know 6 can be divided into 2, so it has 2 parts now. And now I need to divide it into thirds so that there's 3 and 3, which equals 6 on both sides. So 3, I can do this by separating into thirds. 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3 parts. And 1, 2, so 1, 2, 3 parts. And this is 1/6, 2/6. 3/6 is exactly where 1/2 is. 4/6, 5/6, and my 1 is 6/6. And I'm able to see that they're equivalent because, or the same or equal, because they both fall on my number line in the same place, just how they would fill up my fraction bar, the same amount. What we're going to do now is measure lengths to the nearest 1/4 inch. So what I want you to do now is pause me and get a ruler and figure out how are the 1/4 inches shown on your ruler. How are the 1/4 inches shown on your ruler? So where is 1 inch on the ruler? Here, mine is right here. Now I need to figure out where is 1/4 of an inch on my ruler. And I know that's my half. Maybe I can actually. So that's my half. And I know that's separated into 1/4. So my longer lines are 1/4. So my 1/4 is right here. Now I want to know where is 3/4. So I have 1, 2, 3 parts. So this is where my 3/4 of an inch is. Now I want you to by yourself think about where is 1 1/4 inches. So you should have been able to figure out where is 1 1/4. So I go to my 1 whole and figure out 1 more 1/4. This would be 1 1/4 of an inch. And another way that we said that we could figure out 1 1/4, and we figured that out yesterday, if it's 1 more part, but I'm already over my whole, so I already have 1 whole. If I did another 1/4, I could say that is 5/4. Because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/4. So now think about where is 2.5 inches. Pause me and think about where 2.5 inches are on this ruler. If you were to figure that out now, you could have seen that I would go to 1, 2, 1/4, 2.5, halfway between 2 and 3. And I know it's kind of hard to see my numbers on my ruler. It's kind of an old ruler. So what you're going to do is collect data about the length of the hand spans of people in your house. So it could be siblings, cousins, grandparents, parents, just their hand spans. So you're going to measure, your hand span is the distance from your pinky finger to your thumb when it's completely stretched out. A hand span wouldn't look like this. A hand span is when your hand is completely spread out and it's measuring from your pinky to your thumb. And the size of someone's hand span makes a difference in some sports, like in basketball or in baseball, because I know if someone threw a basketball at me, I wouldn't be able to grab it. It would just fall right out of my hand. But someone with a bigger hand span is able to get their whole hand around that basketball. So hand span, the distance from your pinky to your thumb, is a measure that's been used for many, many years. So by yourself, what you're going to do is work and measure the people in your houses from your hand spans to the nearest 1/4 of an inch. So I wouldn't measure mine and say that this is 5 inches because that's not my nearest 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to have to line up the end of my ruler with my partner's pinky or thumb, either way, and measure it on the ruler. But I could also do it where I measure from my thumb to my pinky. It's going to be the same distance, same measurement. You just need to make sure that you are lining it up at the edge of a ruler. Remember how we measure things. Keep in mind that I said you're going to measure to the nearest 1/4 of an inch. So if I measured mine, and I'm making sure my pinky is lined up directly at the edge or where my first mark is, what is my hand span to the nearest 1/4 of an inch? So I see that it's 5, and what I see, is it closest to this 1/4, this 1/4, or this 1/4? Or this 1/4? I would say that it's closest to this 1/4. So how I would say that is that my hand span is 7 3/4 of an inch. So my hand span, so I'd write Miss O, 7 3/4 inches. But what if I was measuring it and my hand ended right about here? I'm not stretching my hand out all the way just for this example, but make sure you're stretching out yours. What if my hand was exactly here? It's exactly 7.5 inches. What's the nearest 1/4 of an inch? Pause me and think about what I would say for my nearest 1/4 of an inch would be if my hand was this long. I would say still that it's 7.5, or remember yesterday with our ants, 1/2 is also 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. 1/2 is equal to 2/4. They're the same. So I could say that this is 7.5, or it's 7 2/4. I'm still measuring it to the nearest fourth. What about if my hand was just a tiny bit more than 5 inches? Could I still measure it with, and just say it's 5 inches? What's the nearest fourth of an inch? So my nearest fourth of an inch for 5 inches would still be 5 inches. Because remember what we said yesterday is when an ant was walking, if he's starting right at 0, my fraction would be 0/4. But if he got all the way over here to 5 inches, it'd be 5 inches in 0/4. And 5 0/4 is a mixed number, but I can also figure out what my numerator is over my denominator by counting the fourths. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20/4 is equal to 5 as a whole number. So 20/4 is equal to 5. So what I'd like you to do now is on any piece of paper, go around and measure the people in your house's hand spans. So from their pinky to their thumb, and measure it to the nearest fourth of an inch. Remember that 1/2 is equal to 2/4. Just like if I had a number that was if I measured just 5, it would be equal to 5 0/4, or just 5. So on a random piece of paper, try to measure as many people as you can of their hand span. So when they're completely stretched out, make sure that their pinky or their thumb is at the edge of the ruler, and write it just how I did. So Miss O would be 7 3/4 inches. So at this point, what you should have done is went around your house and measured the hand spans of your family members. But for the sake of our next activity, and you are also provided this is the data that we're going to use. You can also use the data that you collected with your family's hand spans, but just because we need to have more data in order to do our next activity, I added this. So we're going to make a line plot of the handspan data that we collected from our class. And the handspan data is in fourths of an inch. So you're going to have to also mark fourths of an inch on your line plot, just like we did yesterday when we marked fourths on a number line. So thinking about fourths on a number line should give you a good idea about how you should also draw this on a line plot. So I'm going to start an example of our line plot for our hand span data, so that you know how to label the line plot. It's going to be a little bit different than how you would label a number line, but I'm only going to make mine from 5 to 6 inches. So your line plot, you need to make sure you have all of this data included, but I'm only going to be focusing on the data that's from 5 to 6 inches. So I'm going to start by making a line across and writing 5 and 6. And this represents my 5 inches and my 6 inches. And this space in between needs to be big enough that I can label my fourths of an inch throughout. So if I was going to label fourths of an inch, I need to make sure that I do half to show 5 1/4, 5 1/2, or 5 2/4, and 5 3/4. Started marking 5 and 6 inches on the line plot. And then we measured 1/4 of an inch. So I needed to mark 1, 2, 3, 4 parts to show 1/4 inches. And I labeled them by saying 5, 5 1/4, 5 1/2, which is equivalent to 5 2/4, and 5 3/4. In order to have a line plot, I need to be able to say the title and also what it's measured in. A title for this line plot could be handstands, and I'm measuring this all in inches. So your line plot, when you make it, you need to make sure that you have inches and a title on the top. And I use the term quickly mixed numbers. And a mixed number is a number, a whole number, like 5 or 1 or 2 or 3, and so on, with a fraction. So a mixed number has both a whole number and a fraction, like 5 1/4. Or 5 1/2. I have my whole number and my fraction. That's how I want to be making sure that I do this. Not 20/4. I want to have mixed numbers, so my whole numbers are included. How would I start using my line plot? How I would do it is I would quickly go through and see which number. So I see 6 inches can be shown on this line plot. And I would make an X right about 6 inches. I don't see anything else that's between 5 and 6 just yet. Oh, there's another 6 inches. So I would do a mark right on top. Here is 5 3/4. And notice how I'm crossing them out. That way I'm making sure I'm keeping track of what I'm using and what I'm not. 5 3/4. I put an X right above 5 3/4. Another 6 inches, 5 1/2 inches. And notice what's really important when you're doing this is that I'm keeping each row even. I wouldn't want to put 5 1/2 up here because then it looks like it's equal to how many 6 inches I have. I need to make sure that my rows are even throughout. So if I have one measurement, they should all be lined up together. If there's 2 of something, they're lined up, and so on. So I have 5 1/2, another 6 inches. I'm just kind of move over my title. It's a little tight on the board. And another 6 inches. And they're all even throughout. What I did on my line plot is I only did 5 inches through 6 inches. But what you need to do on your line plot is be able to use all of this data. So here I see that 5 would be my lowest, but I have up to 8 1/4 inch. So I need to make sure I have my line plot going from 5 inches to at least 8 1/4. So you need to make sure you're able to plot all of this data that's right here. If you want to use the data that you have from your home, the people in your family or in your house, you're more than welcome to, but you need to make sure that they're able to go on our line plot. So I only did 5 through 6 inches, but you're going to need to make sure that your line plot's bigger so you have all of this data included. You also need to make sure that you're keeping your marks in line with each other. So one X should always be even throughout the entire line plot. If you have 2, it should be directly on top, but also even if another number has 2. I wouldn't want to put it up here because then it looks like it's even with 3 x's. On this line plot, you want to have a title and your measurement. This will be done on page 359. You can use Kami, which you can download on Google Chrome, or you can take a picture and upload it from your work packet. So this page 359, is in your work packet along with it being on your assignment tab.